Hello there, and welcome to another episode of All Nicked Up. Uh, we have an interesting show tonight. We have to talk about. We will get into the very first quarterfinal the Knicks were in a long time for the NBA Cup. We're going to get into that. Did not go as planned that for us, but we'll get into that in a little bit. A bunch of other information, a bunch of other stuff has come out. Quentin Grimes complaining about his role, and Emmanuel Quickly didn't show up again in a playoff game. Like, what are we doing here? But let me bring the guys in now. Let me bring Ty and Joe and how. First of all, how are you guys?
I will say that I am doing much better, man. We had no heat in the house for about 36 hours.
Ooh.
So we were burning wood and burning wood and burning wood, almost died from smoke inhalation and carbon
Holy
monoxide
shit.
poisoning. So if I'm coughing during this,
Understandable.
you're going to have to, deal with me. But we have heat now.
That's a good
It's
thing.
funny how you appreciate the things that you go day in and day out not really appreciating, but when they're gone, you're like, gee, I wish I had heat.
It's
I mean, did the last time I can relate something like that was Hurricane Sandy. So we're going back 11 years now. I didn't have heat or power for like 5 days.
Mhm.
That was a little bit crazy, but yeah, man, that it's weird. You're right. It's weird how you take them for granted that, especially something like that, is just going to be there.
Yeah.
Like, I've had my burner go out break down a few times and wake up like, why the hell is it so damn cold in the house? And I have to run downstairs. I'm like, damn it. So we bought a new one. I have a new one, so it's not a problem anymore. But yeah, man, that sucks. I'm glad. Well, first of all, I'm glad you have heat again. But second of all, did you have the windows opened when you were doing all this?
No, man. We did not have the windows open because we were trying to conserve heat. We have one fireplace for like 2,500 square feet.
Right.
So we had that thing burning and burning and burning to try to get the heat up.
Right.
But we had to sleep close to the fireplace because you go to the other side of the house and it's freezing cold.
Right.
So we had to be around the smoke and all of that because, I mean, you're making a fire. It's like Eddie Murphy talking about the barbecue. That's a fire. It was like, that's a fire.
I haven't heard that one in a while. That's funny. That's a fire.
That's a fire. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm happy that you have your heat again and that you're not killing yourself by trying to cool your house. because that oh man, it's crazy. It makes you think though how they did it back in the day before we had heat, right? Makes you wonder.
Dude, there were Indians living here for hundreds of years, and then they did it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah, we're all New Yorkers, and you're further north than we are, and so we know how it gets cold here. Could imagine just how cold it gets up there.
It gets mad cold.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So Ty, are you haven't tried to kill yourself by heating your house lately, have you?
No, I'm laughing about Joe's situation, not because I find that funny. Obviously, it's serious, but we had the opposite one year. One year, our air conditioning went, and it happened to be one of the hottest times. And let me tell you one thing. I grew up with the classic, you had a fan blowing on you, and it was just blowing hot breath. I didn't say breath. Breath. Let's preference the enunciation of that breath. It's blowing hot on you because that's how I grew up. You didn't have any AC in the house, so it's funny. You get used to certain privileges now. Certain perks of having comfort. So it happened to us like in the beginning of 1 August when it was actually feeling like the regular August months. When you got those real summers and. Man, an appreciation for when that damn thing got fixed. You'll never hear me complain about anything as far as when it comes to the utilities. I do appreciate my utilities. That's for damn sure.
Well, talk about brutal. Talk about getting beat down. Talk about losing the yeah losing the comforts. The comforts of home. The Knicks, man. That, as you guys can see, as we know, if you're watching the show, it's happened last night. The Knicks lost to the Bucks in the NBA Cup quarterfinals in Milwaukee. The score was pretty bad. They hung with them in early, and in I want to say the first half, they hung with them. But I knew, and I was saying because we were chatting, I said to Ty, I was like, "Where's the defense?" That was my question the whole night. And it's the same thing that they always have a problem with. They're giving up way too many open 3-point shots. This has been a problem since the coach has been here. He likes to talk about, well, they shoot low percentage, and I keep saying, but if they take 80 shots, 80 threes, the percentage of that, 36% of that is still a good percentage, right? So, it's things like that we saw again last night. Obviously, Giannis gets away with, every time I watch him, I say this man gets away with so much. But that the fast break he had, literally, he carried and traveled on the same thing. They didn't call it. They didn't. I was like, this is nuts. But I think I will say this: I was more interested in the game because of there actually was stakes involved, and I'm not saying that it's great stakes, but there were stakes. So I was more interested in the game last night. What was your guys' takeaway though from the game? Joe, you can start.
I was genuinely excited for the game, to tell you the truth. I was looking forward to it, to have a pseudo playoff atmosphere. And again, I thought they stayed with them well in the first half. The Bucks were pulling away at the end of the first half, and then we made like a nice little run to kind of keep it close. But then second half, it was just bad. Like real bad. It was a tough loss. I expected more. I expected them to come out. I expected them to compete, and I kind of thought they were going to win that game. But Milwaukee's tough. Everybody knows that. They seem to have our number. It was a tough loss.
Yeah, the specific, like I said, the specific trends showed up again every time the Knicks seem to lose a game, and lose a game badly. It's the same script for me every time. It's just always a game like this. Not when they compete and they lose, because whatever, they weren't hitting threes either. That's the other thing. Milwaukee was hitting all their threes. The Knicks weren't really hitting theirs at all. It was just I felt like, and this should never happen. I felt like Griffin outcoached Thibodeau last night. And it shouldn't happen. I say that because who has the more experience as a head coach, right? You would think it would be Tibbs, but last night I don't think. I definitely think that Griffin got the best of him. And it's happened. We've seen it happen now with Spoelstra, which, okay, that's acceptable. But this one was a little bit more surprising. Ty, what were your takeaways from the game?
No, I mean, I could care less about the tournament kind of aspect of it, but I did believe that this was a very important measuring game in the sense that we needed to see when something mattered how this team would respond. This is the biggest thing that we're waiting for always is the playoffs. Like, once we get into the playoffs, how will this team perform? Because you expect that throughout the year, Thibodeau's teams are going to compete. They're going to be a tough out. They're always going to be, have a pretty solid record. They're going to accumulate wins. This is his MO. He's going to max out the talent that's on this team. That's always been the given. The question mark has always come down to, what are you going to do when it matters the most? And what we've seen from this Knicks team is, we don't have a measuring stick. We see them play like, Boston and the bigger teams, and we see that we have basically lost to those teams. But you do want to see how you stack up, when it matters the most, because those are still regular season games. This one had a little bit of more, cream on the cake, to really measure out and see where this team is at against a team that's competing also for something, whether it's great, it's a paper champion, I guess you want to call it. But I'm not shocked because there's this thing that I've been saying about this team, like when we talked about the wins, how much we think the win total is going to be. the greatest nemesis that the Knicks have is a couple of nemesis. I mean, limited playbook. We how much more we're going to harp on the offense and how terrible it really is. When it matters the most. Also, we're Lilliputians. A team that has any kind of length, a lot of help. The taller teams. I'm surprised we got out of Toronto and won that game because I was just banking on the fact that Toronto's a tall, long team. If they play aggressive defense, they're going to bully around the Knicks no matter how, much ferocity or competitiveness you want to put out on the floor. After a while, talent and height and, athleticism can play and impact the game. So the Knicks don't have those things. And we go back to maybe the third thing is roster balance. We see the team as a very competitive, scrappy team. But let's just keep it a buck. When we look at this team, we don't know what the hell's going on offensively. We don't know. I mean, we can't get two guys, simultaneously playing great in a game because it's just a terrible fit. I mean, when we look at it, we've been saying the same thing about RJ and Julius prior to Brunson getting here. They're redundant talents. So the offense has been basically, here's your turn, here's my turn. And it won't include anyone else. So, you're kind of like a sitting duck in water when you're playing against a team that can zero in on your issues. And the major thing, as Eric pointed out prior, was those damn threes. I mean, how do you keep giving up corner threes? Like each time every time, and it happened to be Brunson's man, unfortunately for Brunson, that corner three, he was getting completely murdered on. It's like the closeouts have been always horrible on those corner threes or even on any of the threes. The closeouts have always just been lackluster because they cheat and hedge too much into the paint. It's the same story every time, which for me, we do have a cap on a talent level, but the coach is the cap, to be real honest. Until he learns to be more than let's go to the Army, be all you can be. Well, this might be all he can be. He might not be better than this. And hence, that's going to put a ceiling. I said there's two people that will dictate wherever the Knicks go. And they got caps on their abilities. Although Julius, APB, that's what he is, not Julius. APB had a great game.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, but yeah.
But one of those two, Penguin or APB, is going to cap out the Knicks because when one comes in, either he comes in and he underwhelms because he quit on a play last time when he saw Brunson do the turnaround. He was like, he threw his arms and was like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here with the body language, And then Nip's not go anywhere. He is what he is as a coach, and it's gonna suck for us if we have plans to go further or want to go further into the playoffs. I don't think this is the team that's gonna work.
Yeah, so you brought him up. We'll go to him right away. And the way I put it in here, because I'm gonna give it credit for being a playoff game. It was in a lot of respect. Obviously, it was a quarterfinal game of a tournament. So, it's a playoff. If you lose, you're out. So that technically is the definition of playoff. Mm-hmm. And he was fantastic. Julius, he was great last night. At one point, he was, what did he get? 7 for 7, 8 for 8, something like that. He hadn't missed a shot. He was making good decisions with the ball. He was being aggressive, but not like over aggressive to a point where he was freezing people out. He played a really good game against a guy who, let's be honest, it's a tough matchup. Giannis is a tough matchup on both ends of the floor. He's a great defensive player, and he's a good offensive player. So it was a good matchup. And I think the thing I liked the most about his performance and what I saw was he was in the game. Like, he was in the moment. He wasn't thinking about too much. You could tell he was focused on what was going on. You could tell he wanted to play well. Like, this was important to him. And that's what I took from it. And if they get this version of him in the playoffs, they're going to have a shot to win. And they're going to have a shot to win every series they're in. I mean, as much as we harp on him and get on him, and there were some things last night still, like you said, the body language with getting frustrated, and then it impacts his defense. He doesn't always get back on defense when that stuff happens, or he gets frustrated. He lets his offense impact his defense. That showed up especially when the game started to get out of hand. I think that showed up a little bit, but I'm gonna give him credit. He showed up and played well.
Yeah.
So, Joe, did you see anything about Julius's game last night that stuck out?
I think he's played well for a while now after the rough start overall. I mean, I think with Julius, it always comes down to me. I know I tend to be the Julius defender of the group. I think fans got to stop waiting for this guy to be a superstar or be our star player or our franchise player. I mean, he is an inconsistent player. I don't think the APB nickname is really fair considering how much he shows up, plays injured.
Let me explain what the APB is.
I know his game sometimes fluctuates. I'm assuming it has something to do with that.
But it's really the mentality. You don't know where did the mind go? Do you got to put an APB out? It's really a mentality thing. Talent-wise, you'll never hear me talk about that dude in a bad way. Work ethic, never talk bad. It's a wandering mind. Like, how do you reel back in his mind? You got to put out an APB to get him reeled back in because he's lost. He can go on the court and just completely get taken out of his context. Then that's what the APB. I just want to clarify. It's not because I don't think he shows up. It's like, where did he go once he shows up?
His psyche has always been a little bit of a problem, but I think he's played well. I think he was one of the NBA players of the week last week.
He was.
Yeah.
You know, and again, he's contributing. He had a really, really hard start. He looked really solid, really fluid in that game. I think I even texted you one time or messaged you one time during the game. It seemed like it was going in beast mode, but it didn't. There wasn't, just like you were saying before, there wasn't anything else going on around that to kind of funnel into a positive drive. It seemed like too much was off with that game, particularly after the first half. I did say at the beginning of the season I thought he was going to have his best season as a Knick, and I'm hoping that's true, and this is not the curse of the every other year with him, but we need this version of him because we're tough when that happens. You know, we have a lot of inconsistency in the performance of our players. RJ is maddeningly inconsistent. I mean, I know he had a migraine, all of that stuff, but after a really strong start, he has kind of reverted back to a bit of an enigma. Randall is an enigma. We know that. The only player that's really pretty consistent is Brunson. Quickly's an enigma. It's kind of the team that we got. We've got kind of a head case team a little bit of the way. Yeah, I thought Randall contributed well. It didn't matter, you know, that he was playing well.
Right.
There was enough else going on.
Right. So Ty, I mean, you kind of explained your thought process with him already. You were talking about the APB. We kind of got the clarification there from him.
Yeah.
But like I said before, did you see, like, he definitely seemed like he wanted that game last night? Like, he played the way, like, it meant a lot to him. This game meant more to him than a normal game.
You know, to me, he played like somebody who was player of the week. And he wanted to prove that he was player of the week and that he's that guy. You know, I mean, you know, early on in the season, we know, excuse me, the struggles were there. We saw it. It was ugly. There was nothing pretty about it. I think the thing is that I think he realized that now he's coming back into the form of what we've known him to be, which is he is a two-time All-Star, two-time NBA All-NBA player. He looked more like Randall from the bubble year last night, which was a very poised Randall back then. You know, you watched him. He just seemed like he had such a good feel for the game. And last night was a good feeling game for him. Like when you watch how he played, he was relaxed. He was not out there forcing anything. He wasn't overthinking the game last night. Just was in the flow, and he took it personal that it was Giannis in front of him. Man, he was like, there was one move, and I was yelling at the television when it happened because I was like, I wasn't explicative. I yelled, but it was because he dropped him basically because Giannis was trying to guard him. And he bodied him, and then all of a sudden he flew off of him. He bounced off of him, and he took that little jumper, and it was, you know, Probably could have been an and one or whatever, but it was just the fact that he was like, you can't guard me tonight. And I love when that mentality, because it's like, this is personal. You can't guard me tonight. I'm just as good as you are. And probably if they called travel on Giannis, he probably is as good as he is. Let's keep it real. That dude gets away with more violations with violator records. So if anybody knew what that is, he's violator records. That's what he is. But that was the best game I've seen from him. That if you could have gotten someone else, because really this falls on Brunson, really the inconsistency, because he's the main star on this team. He couldn't ride. He wasn't a rider with Julius. For the first time, you would say that he failed as opposed to Julius failing. Because, man, when he plays like that, it's a beautiful game. He simplified the game last night. He's like, I'm winning my one-on-one. I'm going to find the guy. But then there was at one point you saw when they started sending the help from an angle that he couldn't, Eric laughed all the time. I said he can't see. There's an angle he just cannot see the floor at some point when they blitz him on the wrong way. And I said, as soon as I started seeing that and he was like holding the ball a little too much, I'm like, those were the little glimpses I saw of him, reverting back to the problematic Randall version where you don't want to see him do those things. But great game, wasted game in this sense, because we've seen this from the Knicks quite often where you get one guy who's having a brilliant game, maybe a perfect game, and there's no help. Like you can't get that second guy to come along, and you end up losing those games, to be honest. We've seen RJ have almost a 60-point game and lost the game. Because there's not a complementary help person that you can bring in that says, okay, when RJ's not cooking, we don't have an instant player. Everything's rough. When you go, we can't get easy points. There's not one player that can get easy points. Even if you watch the brilliance of Brunson, there's a lot of work that goes into him. He works for it. He earns every single bucket. It's not like, oh, maybe we'll run a pick and maybe we'll run. He works to get all the points he gets, whether it's 3 or 2, whatever. There's just so much work. He has to eat up so much of the clock just to get that shot off. And Julius is the same way. RJ's a little bit more fluid, but then it's the inconsistency of sometimes he just goes completely off the reservation in his shot selections. Dude, you've been driving all year in the beginning, and that's been uber successful. Don't abandon that with those little flip shots, the little pancake shots. You're flipping pancakes. Nobody wants to see all that from you because you're way too gifted of a driver to be sitting there parking your car. And that's literally what we've seen from him. But Julius has been, in this game in particular, I thought he played a brilliant game, but it wasn't going to matter because he had no help.
Right. Yeah. He didn't get Brunson's numbers. If you look at them, they don't look terrible. He was 10 of 22, and he had a kind of little bit of a flurry when the game was already decided. So that kind of boosted up his numbers. But you're right from a standpoint that let's be completely honest here. Brunson might be the point guard in name, but Randall's the guy who initiates the offense. That's pretty much how this team is designed and built. So from that standpoint, I felt like he had, like you said, he had a good floor game for the most part. Saw everything well, was making good decisions. But yeah, it was all for naught. Kind of sad because, like I said, it was kind of a pseudo playoff game, and it would have been cool if he had this game and they won. Yeah. And he could have led that. People finally said, well, he played well in a playoff type atmosphere. Mm-hmm. You get that off. Well, another guy who has his playoff struggles, once again had playoff struggles, if you want to call it again. Emmanuel Quickly was. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's mental. Like I said, technically, this is not an NBA playoff game, but it's for something. And and he was really bad. He shot 1 for 7, 1 for 4 from 3. He only had 3 assists. He only played 19 minutes. That's one thing I'll say about Thibodeau with him. When Quickly's not playing well and there's stakes involved, he just pulls him out. He's like, yep, he doesn't have it. We're not playing him tonight. Get him out.
That's
So,
true.
do you guys think this? Do you guys think it's in his head? Either one of you, do you guys think it's in his head that when the games mean more?
I think so. I'll let Joe go. Go ahead, Joe.
I think there's just a lot of variability in his performance as a player. I don't know necessarily that it's just the playoffs. I'm not sure, even with Randall, that it's a playoff thing, to tell you the truth, because look at the last two seasons. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but in the bubble, Randall had nobody else in that team, and the defense just focused on him. He didn't have enough around him. Second year, he was legit hurt to the point that he had surgery. IQ also injured last playoffs. I just think there's a lot of variability to his performance. I think he's a streaky player. I think he's very talented, but I don't think he's dependable in that way. Like we were talking about this last week about him, there being talk about him being a $30 million a year player. And I think the point that you and I both brought up, Eric, was wait. He may not seem like a $30 million a year player a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, because he had just come off a hot streak of playing really well. I just think there's a lot of variability to his game. It doesn't make him a bad player. It just is kind of what he is. He cannot consistently come in and give you a dependable output from a scoring perspective. He can from a defensive perspective. He'll come out and he'll give you effort and give you solid defense. But he's not one of those guys you could depend on. All right, he's going to give me 14 a night. You just don't know with him. Sometimes he's going to give you 23. Sometimes he's going to give you squat. Another reason why I'm glad they didn't sign him, and I don't think they should sign him for some of the numbers that we talked about. I don't know if it's a playoff thing, though. Honestly, I think the sample is too small, to be honest, Eric.
Okay. Ty, what about you?
I'm gonna give a hot take here. People are not gonna like it. He's not a good basketball player. He's not. And I know people are gonna say, yeah, he puts up numbers.
Yeah, he has a legion of fans. So
there's more to this game than scoring. And he is terrible at a lot of the other parts of the game. Because what ends up happening, like you talk about the inconsistencies, I've always said, what are you doing when you can't score? What are you doing when you can't score? And with him, he plays solid defense from time to time. I'm not going to knock the defensive side of him. But when you take away his tricks, what is he going to rely on? Everything's a quick shot, no pun intended on the name. It's a launching three.
A floater.
We went. Well, that's the thing. If the floater was there, I wouldn't be saying what I just said. Like, you need to have more of the float game where those teardrop shots that we saw when he first came into the league, we're like, wow, this dude's float game is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You know, those teardrop shots, he was getting them over everybody. And then it just went from the teardrop to you crying tears on his shot selection, because then it became, I'm launching every damn thing because I'm Steph Curry. And he wasn't even Jamaican Curry. Let's just put it right where it is. He's not Trini Curry.
Or Indian Curry.
He's not Masala Curry. He ain't no Curry. Don't be throwing up the damn shots like that. But what happens is because it's sporadic play. He does not have a great handle where he can break down a defense and get that float off anymore. Because when you watch, the sign of a bad point guard is you keep picking up your damn dribble. Once you start doing that, you done. When you watch Emmanuel play, and like I said, I'm not dogging him for what he's good at. When it's good, it's great. But when it's not great, it is terrible to watch. And he comes into a game like tonight or last night, and a good defense is going to take you out of your comfort. So when you're uncomfortable, what are you good at? He's not good at a lot of basketball things. When you talk about it, are you going to pass the ball? Or does anybody think he's going to pass? Probably not. I wouldn't think he's going to do a bunch of passing when he comes in the game. Are you going to do your flow game? No, because if the defense stacks out good on the perimeter and doesn't allow him, he can't take somebody off the bounce consistently enough where he becomes a threat in the paint. He's not Allen Iverson, where he can break down and get in the paint anytime. When you can get in the paint as a point guard or a guard, that's considered a post play. So once you can get into the paint because it draws in the defense, now you can angle out and shoot and spray the ball whichever way you want to go. To use a Tom Thibodeau term, to spray the ball. Nobody think he's spraying nothing. Maybe Lysol. You know he's not doing anything but launching the damn three and playing defense. That's not going to cut it when teams zero in on you and start taking away your strong hand. Or play you out further on the perimeter and say, beat me off the dribble, and you don't have that package. So, like I said, as fun as he is to watch and as energetic, and yeah, he has ballers. Don't ever get it wrong. He's got ballers when it comes to taking huge shots. But when those things are not falling, what is Emmanuel Quickley as a player? Like, I mean, we can go on defense all you want, but Eric knows my theory about defense. The game is still outscoring the other team. I don't care how much defense you play. Can you outscore the other team still? There's nobody I've seen 1-0-0. When he comes in the game, teams know what he wants to do, and they're not allowing it. And then that gets in his head because now he's like, what else can I do? Because you don't have the extra gravy on the meatloaf. You don't got that no more. Now you just some raw meat in the plate. Like, you ain't going to do nothing? Would you be worried about him? Either one of you, would you be worried about him if you really schemed against what he does? What he does well, you're saying take away his hand, take away his strong hand, and now I'm going to ask you to now be this shooter, this fundamentally sound shooter that can kill me from the outside to the point now I got to come out and guard you, and then he can blow by you. Anybody feel comfortable saying that you can't stop him?
It depends what version of him shows up.
He's got to be lit. He's got to be lit. Because if he can't shoot from the outside, it opens up nothing else with his game. When he had that float game, I would have said, yeah, you can, man.
He's trying the float game, but he's missing it. He's not hitting the float.
The issue I've had with him from the beginning, and it's not so much him, it's the way they decided to develop him, is they've been trying to make him a point guard since they drafted him. Mm-hmm. And he's just not. He's not a point guard. You can't, he still has those moments in games where you could tell he's thinking too much and he's trying to say, well, that's when he holds the dribble too long because he doesn't know what to do with the ball. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, someone needs to tell him your job is just to be instant offense and score off the bench. That's all we want from you. I don't care what else you think you need to be. You're not that. Yeah. So just do that and we'll be okay. And that's what we want from you. And if down the line other things develop and you get better at other parts of your game, that's fine. That's great. No one ever's going to ever cap your ability to get better. No one's saying that. But it's a problem. Again, I keep going back to the organization, how the team's structured, and the coach, and how the coach sees the game, where he doesn't believe in this, well, guy should be good at everything, or guy should get better at everything. He has this thing, well, you're a 3-and-D guy. You rebound and protect the paint. That's your job as a center. We don't need you to score. Just rebound and protect the paint. And you just drive the ball the game. We don't care what else you like. Those are things he does. That's his mentality, and that's fine. I think it's fine to have structure again and have guys have roles, but he's kind of just, I don't know. I get frustrated talking about it because I feel like some of the guys on the team are being misused, and that's how I get.
He's such a template coach. Like,
yeah.
Heavens forbid. And like I said, I'm not knocking Emmanuel as a person. I mean, I like him as a Knick. I don't want it to be the bad Emmanuel Quickley show. It's just more so you see what he's not good at. Why would you ever put him in a position to do any of those things? It makes zero sense, because everybody has a limitation on the floor unless you're Michael Jordan. I mean, it's just really what it is. Mm-hmm. Very few players are that special where they are great at everything that they do. And to put him in a position where he's not a point guard, he's more of a combo guard at best. If you can maybe get that out of him, you might get a little Jamal Crawford out of him. You might get that kind of player from him. Well, although I think Jamal is a better player. But I'm just saying, you can
maybe a better handle.
Way better. I think you can mold him into that type if you want to. But he's really Lou Williams. Everybody said it. That's his idol. That's really who he is. Your bucket getter and coming off the bench. But this coach, I've never. Well, we saw Alec Burks at point guard for like a whole year. So it's like, what the hell is? Who had that on their bingo card? That's what I'd love to know. Who had that on their bingo card? We're going to start Alec Burks at point guard. You've never groomed Emmanuel to be a point guard. He's not a point guard. He's what he is. He's a scoring streak scorer. That's really what he is. And that's why I'm saying, like, he's not that dude fundamentally as a basketball player. So why you got him coming in the game like, oh, quickly, you're going to come in and all of a sudden you're going to break down the team? Come on. He doesn't have the handle to do it. Brunson is great. He's a great isolation player. Emmanuel Quickly's not.
Yeah. This is
Eric, you talk about players being misused, and obviously you're right. It sounds like you're not the only person that's thinking that lately.
You're right. We're going to talk about him next. So,
kind of segue that.
Yes, very nice segue. Very well done. Very well done. We didn't practice that, guys. He did that all on his own. All freestyle. Thank you. Yeah. So it was interesting because to hear his Quentin Grimes comments post game last night, because he doesn't really say much, right? Yeah. He's not a guy who talks a lot. And when he does, it's always positive stuff like, I need to get better. I need to work on my game. I need to do all this stuff. Well, last night he was kind of like, all right, I guess I need to just let everybody know what's really going on with me. And I mean, I put that part of the quotation, his statement in there. It's hard to get in a rhythm. That's one of the things that he said. It's hard to get in a rhythm when you don't get enough touches, when the ball's not finding you, when the design of the game isn't for him to get the ball in those situations. Like, he really pulled back the curtain a lot on what he felt was wrong, and why he feels he's struggling right now. It sounded like I was waiting for him to say, and I want to get traded. I was waiting for that part of the quote to come. I'm telling you, if he was an NFL player, he would have said, and I want to get traded. That would have come out eventually.
Say that through their agent now.
Huh?
Players in the NBA only say that through their agent, it seems, anymore.
That's true. Yeah. But it was a very revealing statement. And he's not the first guy to do it. Like, Josh Hart did it, 2.5 weeks ago? He commented about his role. And then Obi, obviously, last year commented about his role.
RJ did it a year.
Yep. RJ has said it in the past. And, I mean...
Every summer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can't actually. It's been said a lot with this coach, and I'm not again. And we're kind of getting to the point now in Thibodeau's history where the team starts doing things like that. The players on his team start saying things like this. Yep. This is not exclusive to his Knicks tenure. This happened in Minnesota. It started to happen in Chicago when they started towards the end when Rose got hurt and things started to go sour there. These things are progressive and they start happening with him. And that it's natural for that to happen. Players after a while start tuning you out, especially if you're not doing things they want you to do with or using them correctly. But it was strange coming from Quentin Grimes. What do you guys think is going to happen now?
Besides the Greyhound bus he's going to jump on? The minutes he won't be playing anymore?
Do you think? Okay, I'll put it that way. Do you think he's going to get benched?
I think he's going to get traded.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think it was as offensive as what Obi did. I don't think Thibodeau's going to take the offense that he did with what Obi said. Like, as soon as Obi fired off what he fired off, once you heard kind of the script of what was said, you knew he was out of town. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen with Grimes. I think he does have value for what Thibodeau wants from him. I think people that you could take and defensively put against the team's best player and play good defense, that's important to Thibodeau. I don't know that you can automatically replicate that with somebody else. He's a chess piece that I think Thibodeau wants for that very strict, defined role. Like you were talking about, you're my guy that I put on the opposing team's best player. That's what you do. Now, of course, for a guy who can actually play basketball, that's kind of a tough nut. I mean, I've talked into last season with you guys about just dropping the shooting guard down on the left side, down in the corner, and then the offense moves around him, and how frustrating that's got to be. But again, I'm going to say this. Ev didn't have a problem getting his shots. Yeah, he probably got benched for his ineffectiveness, but Ev found shots within that offense. And the offense was not a different offense because Ev had confidence and Ev went and got his. Yes, it did land him on the bench, but I still think Grimes has to be more assertive. I don't think that this is all about the system, and I stand by that. I think he's kind of a passive personality. I don't think as a player you can expect to get schemed into the game the way you want to be schemed into the game. At some point, you have to assert yourself. I don't think that offense is going to change. I think you're right, Eric. I think people do have very prescribed roles within this offense and this team. And again, in some cases that may be beneficial, in some cases not. Do you really want, Mitch in a really important game trying to break out post moves? Or do you want him doing what he's doing? I don't know. I don't think you're going to see him traded unless it's beneficial for the team return-wise. I don't think you're going to see him traded for the sake of let's get him out of town. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he will be traded if it's beneficial for the Knicks to trade him return-wise. So I don't see him really going anywhere immediately. I would like to see him go to the bench. I know that that's been discussed here before too. Move Dante into the starting lineup. Give him some cohesion with Brunson. Kick, Grimes at this point to the bench and rebuild his confidence and put the ball in his hands. That might be the best move. Getting rid of him just because he's unhappy with his role is rash and reactionary and probably would be a bad move in retrospect. That's my take.
Well, you brought up some great points. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect also between the coach and the front office because the front office has guarded him and not included him in trades all this time, and now this is happening. It's not the first time we saw that either. Famously, and his fans will come and defend him, and they'll point to what he's doing with the Lakers now. But famously, Cam Reddish was, that guy before this, right? Mm-hmm. Where Leon traded for him, and then Thibodeau was like, "What? What? And he just left him. He basically let him rot. So I think that's a layer here. But Ty, we've talked about Grimes a lot in the past and what we think of him as a player. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah.
Can I be Quentin Grimes for a minute?
Okay.
I'm going off the Knicks script. I'm going to be Quentin Grimes. This is Quentin Grimes conscious. Man. They had me working with JJ Redick. Oh, damn, summer. Thibodeau said, come on. We're going to incorporate this into your offense. We're going to be running off screens. We're going to get you right. That's what's his name? Fizdale line. We're going to get you right. This is what they asked of this kid all summer. Go work with these guys, especially JJ Redick. And this is Thibodeau. As Thibodeau's advice is saying, we're going to start incorporating some of the movement that Redick used his whole career into this offense. And Grimes is sitting there like, this some bull, you know what? Because I have not ran off no screens. I might have ran through a screen door, but I haven't ran off of no screens, no nothing, no pin downs. Me and little Penny was hanging out in Memphis working on my game, and I'm not doing none of this scrap. In game, there's no wrinkles. There's nothing going on. You got to think about it.
No, you're right.
He is not being utilized like he was told he would be utilized. He's standing in the corner, which we all knew it was Cap. That's a young word about a lie. We knew it was Cap. When we heard he was working on, I've said it. I don't know if you recall. I told Eric at least. I said, why is he working on any of this stuff? It's not going to be used this way.
He didn't say it.
He will never be used this way in the whole office. I'm like, why is he hanging out with Penny?
Like the janitor brushing up on his brain surgery.
It looks good in his mixtape videos, but come on. Nobody bought he was going to do any Penny Hardaway moves, no JJ Redick moves. Dude, you sitting in the corner. They put Baby in the corner on Dirty Dancing. You in the corner. You not coming out until Patrick Swayze, and we know rest in peace. He ain't here no more. You are not coming out and dancing in front of your family. At the end of the end of the summer movie, whatever you want to call it, display. You're not doing that, Quentin Grimes. You just must sit down and ask for the trade you want, bro, because you are not getting any of those calls for you. There's not a play being ran for you, bro. We are in ISO heaven. And you don't got not one. The one guy who passes cannot pass break. He just averages 6 assists. But Julius is, other than last night's game was brilliant. But we won't see that anomaly. That's like Haley's comment. You're not going to see that for another 5 years. That he's going to have that kind of game? Are you kidding me? For consistency, that Quentin Grimes is going to see this every game? No, bro. Put him for your trade. And I'm on sure he probably has already said, look, can we move me? How can I get out of here? I'm not saying he will be moved, but who would not ask that? That dude is talented, but he's a volume. He's not a sniper, and he's being used. Did we talk about this couple?
Yeah, he needs shots.
What is he identified as? People see him as a sniper, and he's a scorer. It's a big difference. He can't just sit there and is instant Ray Allen. He's not that dude. He needs
dependence.
Yeah, and he needs volume. Yeah. There's volume scorers in his league. He may average out 25 points, but he may need 10 shots, to get in rhythm. So it's like you can't expect him to wait. He's cold in a corner. There's an art to guys coming off the bench and our instant offense. It never be like glossed over like it's easy. To come in a game cold and be able to get 15 to 20 points off the cuff, and you can do that every night, is a talent. Quentin Grimes ain't that dude. He needs to be in here, getting worked up. He's got to get part of the – he will never – and I'm going to go Dwayne Johnson. The Rock means never. He will never flourish as a player under this coach with the guys that he is asking to run the offense. That is not going to happen. And if you put him into the second lineup, what do you think? Quickly's going to pass him? Who think Quickly's all of a sudden going to be like, oh, I'm Magic Johnson? He's winning the Magic Johnson Theater, but he's not passing the ball to Quentin Grimes. He's going to worry about scoring for Quickly. You
bring up something now that just hit me when you said that. So with Quickly's contract situation, do you see any scenario where they possibly would trade him Quickly before the end of the season, before the trade deadline, and then give Grimes that responsibility off the bench?
I could see it. I wouldn't pay Manuel Quickly. Didn't you see me clutch my pearls, my fake pearls? I ain't got none. But when you said $30 million, I was like, oh. Who the hell would pay Manuel Quickly $30 million? If that is the asking price, although that theory's been shot down, someone said that he wasn't asking for 25, that it wasn't 25 million, which I think is still absurd.
Probably 20.
But even if it's 22, he's at 17 and a half, $18 million. That's all I would ever go. I would never go to this $25 million. That's just utterly ridiculous. He's a bench player. But I think they have to move him, because if they wanted to keep him, why wouldn't you keep him? Well, what is the whole?
It would have been done by now. I agree.
Everybody else got their contract. Mitch, free agency, got his contract. RJ got his. Well, although we don't know how, but he got it. Julius extended immediately. Everybody's been
Hart.
taking care of it.
Hart
Hart got
got
it. Brunson got his dollars. DiVincenzo. They paid these guys up front. So if you haven't decided to pay Emmanuel quickly, then there's either a gap between you and that player, and he thinks he's worth more than what he is, or you don't see in the plans. Because Thibodeau, this is Thibodeau's favorite player, they say, pretty much. And Thibodeau doesn't trust him to be a point guard.
Oh, quickly? Yeah.
Quickly. He doesn't trust him. They made it known. He's told him basically every year, because what have we gone out and looked for? A point guard every year. And he's basically told him, you're not that dude. I mean, he might not.
Even though he's tried to make him into it.
But he's always brought him off the bench.
Yeah.
Because there's times, until Brunson came here, we have not had a real point guard running this team. And he's never turned the keys over. He gave Burks the keys before he gave Quickly. Think about that.
I know. That should have been the sign, right? That should have been like,
that was your dang test.
Yeah, that should have been the sign to Quickly, like, they don't trust you as a point guard. So, and obviously point guards get paid more than shooting guards, right? Like it's a premium position. So I think that's somehow
position in today's league.
Impact shooting guards are at a premium too in today's league.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but he's not that level. So to me, he's not going to get what a premium shooting guard would get. Every team, though, it seems either is looking for a point guard or doesn't like the one they have or trying to upgrade at that position. I don't know where he fits into the mold as a starter. I wouldn't start him as a point guard, but there might be a team out there that's willing to. And that's the teams I would call right now and be like, okay, what do you want? What are we going to do here? Let's get this conversation going.
Washington might take them because they can't get worse.
Oh my God!
Maybe Jordan Poole to be better than he has been.
Who's that? Deadpool?
Tyus Jones.
Oh, Tyus!
Yeah.
I mean, Tyus is on a terrible team.
Yeah,
Could you
I expect him to be better in Washington. He's not.
Could you imagine Deadpool is one of your that's what I call him. That's Deadpool. Can you imagine Deadpool is your starting backcourt name?
I'm telling you, that one video is all I needed to see. The one video. He had the ball at the top of the key. He spun this way backwards. He shot it and was so confident it was going in. It went on the other side of the hoop.
And he turned around and get back on D after he shot it.
And he was like
and
I'm laughing. I'm laughing so hard watching the video. You know what? He was excellent for the Warriors that year. I have no idea what's happened to this guy. Maybe Draymond did punch him and punch the game right out of him because I have no idea what happened to this guy. Seriously.
It's comical. I mean, it reminds me of how JaVale McGee was like how Shaq got on him so bad. And it's like he's way worse than JaVale McGee could ever be. Like the buffoonery. This guy thinks he's a top 5 player. That's part of the problem. Winning that title and being part of the Splash Brothers, I think it just ballooned his ego. It's like, dude, you're not that dude. I know Kyle Kuzma somewhere with his blonde hair wondering what the hell was I thinking about.
I was trying to find the quote because Kuzma had a quote recently that kind of was talking to Poole, but he didn't say his name. But he said it. Yeah, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. Like, I think he said something like, you have guys taking these ridiculous shots or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
I love the huddle one. The huddle one was funny because he's in the huddle. He's like, oh, it's my team. He didn't even know what the play was, and he went back to try to peep. I'm like, what kind of elementary school thing is going on in Washington? But they might be. I'm gonna tell you one thing. I would take Tyus Jones as a point guard.
They would probably want us to take Poole back.
Yeah, they probably like, hey, can you send him back to Deadpool? Can we get the next multiverse to throw him in? Can somebody take him back? He's a terrible basketball player. He's terrible.
I don't know like I said, he was good. He was legitimately a really good player for them.
He was.
I have no idea.
Maybe it is the punch. Maybe it's the punch heard around the world, You know,
That team.
I told you, Tyson quote I loved. I got a big poster of. He said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." Well, apparently, he was talking to Jordan Poole because that punch. No more plans.
It's crazy to me too, because I mean, I knew wouldn't be a great team, but I thought they'd be better than this.
Also, too.
Like this.
I thought with Tyus Jones.
Yeah.
He's a quality. He's a quality point guard. He's definitely definitively a backup great point guard. Yeah. Something that we could use him, to be very honest. He's one of those players. I think he would make this team run a lot better if you were to put him into the second unit, because he can get everybody. He's a real point guard. He's a real point guard. He's like the Mike Conley type point guard. So you can really use him, and he plays great defense. So I would like that. Wouldn't be bad, but that's the only team I could see quickly may get in a bag from. Well, you may trade him to. I don't think Sam.
And he's from there. He's from Maryland. Yeah.
And I think Pop would choke him. I don't think that would work good in San Antonio. But although they have a lot of cap, they'll have a lot of cap next year. I don't think they would. No, I can't.
Minnesota would be interested.
Maybe.
I mean, Edwards on the same team, that could be.
That could be. Edwards, my Ant-Man might shrink him really.
Yeah, that could be tough. I like Anthony Edwards, and I think he's matured a lot, but he still has that. He still has that switch sometimes that you're like, if he flicks that on, he's about to lose it. He's about to, yeah.
He so quickly, I think. But he might be a good match in there, but he would choke him. I don't know. I mean, I look at. I've always seen the landscape of. This guy's asking. I mean, to bring it back home, that guy's asking for a lot of money. Probably, I don't. It would behoove. Why would the Knicks not move him? Other than you must feel some sort of fan pressure or coach pressure to keep him, because I'm not knocking him. He was run-up 6th man of the year. He's a talent, but I don't know. You just don't put that kind of money. The Knicks need so much that I don't think you can put all that into a backup.
It's close to what we put into Hart, and he's a backup, and he's not shining like he did last year. And how does that look now?
He's starting to play better, though. He's starting to come around, though.
He is.
If you guys had to think about it, like when you look at like this team, like let's go away from the top 4 guys. Is Quickly definitively so much better than Dante?
No.
Or everyone said hell no. Or Josh Hart, or any of those guys on your bench.
He's got a level that those guys don't have.
What do you think the level?
When he's on,
yeah,
he's got a level that neither of those guys can get to.
Gotcha. You don't think Dante has that level to go to?
I think Dante can, but I don't think. I think Dante is more of a player who.
He's a more reliable player.
Yeah, like he's kind of the guy. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't approach the game the way Quickly approaches it. I think that's probably the best way I could explain it. I think Dante, if he got the shots, he could have a game where he can carry it. Like we saw it when he hit the 7 threes that game or whatever it was. He has that kind of game in him, but he's not the one that's going to grab the ball and say, okay, I'm taking this shot no matter. And that's what Quickly does. Quickly just gets the ball and he's like, it's my turn and I'm going to carry us now. Whether he does or not remains to be seen always. You're kind of like, we'll see what happens.
He can do that. He can
though. He can.
Game.
The Boston game last year, easy to remember that game. He was fantastic.
But do you feel like it's just a hot streak guy? And what I mean by that is
he is streaky, yeah.
Similar to what we saw from Dante. Dante over those 2 games, he looked like Ray Allen reincarnated. You know, he was a sniper those 2 games. And we've seen Quickly do the same thing. He could be very hot, and then he could be very not. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, is there such a level of consistency from IQ that just completely usurps the guys behind him? That's what I'm saying. Because can that productivity be replaced by anybody on the team, or is he like so far above them? That's my question.
I'd rather have DiVincenzo on the team than Quickly. To be honest with you. But Quickly has that X factor. he's got not only the ability to score in bunches, but he's got the mentality to get you there. But also, you were talking about Tibbs pulling him quickly when he realizes he doesn't get it. That might be his saving grace because the
He won't
mentality
stop,
might
right?
be there. It's not there. Tibbs pulls the plug on it. It's like a risk mitigation kind of thing. But he can step up with his mentality and his skills and just being who he is. He can win you games or get you back in a game quickly.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I was just wondering what of him was. I mean, like I said, I don't want to have a bias about him. It's just I just know that those monies, the Knicks are not good enough to put that kind of money in a fourth player. That's anybody wants to argue that. I don't know what the hell you're watching.
I agree.
They're not that good to pay that guy X amount of dollars for the sense of saying I'm trying to keep him. Because I don't see what the end. Because especially if we start seeing this become a trend, mentally taking yourself out of games, because that's where we are now. When you think about, I know Joe doesn't, maybe not buy it, but to me, I do think he gets spooked. He gets in his own head when things don't work, and I think he tends to suffer from that. We need a bigger sample size, obviously, but like last night, there was no reason. I mean, who on Milwaukee should be checking him? If you're pulling him off the bench,
off the bench.
Do you think that somebody on Milwaukee should have been able to negate him? I don't think you should have been able. I think that should have been
Grayson Allen, no more.
Yeah, that should have been a game where he should have excelled and came in and because these are big moments. I always say, no matter which way you roll it, you want guys that play in those big moments. So far, we've seen RJ and we've seen Brunson show up to work on those big games. Two guys we have not seen are both from the Bluegrass. We've not seen. I mean, we can give them the injury pass from last season with APB. We're giving them the injury. But we saw what happened in the bubble. We hope that that's matured. We hope that what we saw from Milwaukee last night in that game is who he is moving forward. Then there's no complaints. It's just whether or not we're good enough or we just might not be good enough. But those dudes have checked out of games, important games, and we need to see whether or not I wouldn't pay quickly that kind of money. Because
and it's just
he's checked out of games.
Yeah, but also, I mean, when they signed Dante in the summer, it was kind of a sign. Like, we're signing another guard, something that can play the way he plays. Again, Joe's right. Dante hasn't shown that supernova ability that quickly has sometimes where he can just blow up and become a superstar for a game and carry you for a quarter. We haven't seen that. Dante's more consistent. It comes throughout the game. It won't just be like a spurt. But I think that was when they signed him over the summer, that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, Quickly's got to be saying, and we talked about this. Quickly's got to be saying, what the hell? Like, what's going on here? Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him going forward. I've said already numerous times, I am not paying him that money that he wants.
No.
There's no way in hell I'm giving him that. And I think a lot of fans look at him because he's homegrown and they drafted him and, all that stuff around him. I think a lot of fans who like him will look at that and will point to the things like, they'll point to those things like, oh, his defense is much improved, and he has improved. I'm not going to say he hasn't. He's gotten better since he came into the league. And you always have that attachment to guys like that. I think it's just human nature. But I don't see, and I agree with both of you on this. I don't see them paying him because, like Ty said, they would have already. They would have paid him.
You're done. Yeah.
So,
you take care of
well, the guy, New Yorker, Kenny Smith, last night on Inside the NBA or NBA at halftime, whatever, NBA and TNT. I don't know what damn show that was. He said it on, but he said it last night. They were talking about the Knicks, and they were right. They were saying the Knicks don't have a superstar. Like, I've heard the whole conversation, and they're right. They don't. I'm not going to argue with them there. But to say something reckless like this, and I like Paolo Banchero. I think he's fantastic. He's an excellent player. But to say something like this when Julius Randle made, like we talked about, was all-star team 2 out of the last 3 years, all-NBA 2 out of the last 3 years, that's just reckless. I can't – and Brunson is better than him too. I can't look at this right now and say, and it just goes to the fact, and Craig, if Craig is watching or if he was around, he would say the media, how the media always hates the Knicks, the national media hates the Knicks. And I mean, this is an example of that to me.
Yeah.
This is an example of a shining example of that. But what do you guys, when you guys hear, let me just ask it this way, when you guys hear the national media say things like this, Joe, I'll ask you, what's your reaction? Because I know Ty's, but what's yours?
I think Kenny Smith does have a Knicks bias. I remember years and years and years ago him wanting to insert himself into consideration for the GM job, and he was not considered for that, and that could have possibly stung. I think just as the Knicks will always generate interest, that whole Knicks get clicks thing, you know, the Knicks also, people like to see them fail like they like to see Dallas fail, the Dallas Cowboys fail, like they like to see other great teams fail. I think that there is a perceived bias that may not be rooted in reality. I think a lot of national media types tend to go towards the Knicks and Knicks storylines, particularly ones that are sensationalistic. Stephen A. Smith has eaten many times off of this.
Yes.
You know, like one of Craig's favorite words, hyperbole, Knicks hyperbole, you know, kind of thing. You know, that these kind of crazy Knicks stories or hard Knicks takes that they take because they know it generates interest. I mean, we have the most rabid fan base in the NBA. As far as this is not accurate. Paulo Banchero is a very nice player, and Orlando's doing great things. I mean, at least for this part of the season, they are playing out of their minds between him and Franz Wagner, another player that's really kind of stepped up.
Yeah.
Considering how completely crappy their backcourt is, I'm sorry, it is. They're winning some games over there, but he's not as good as Brunson. Is he better than Randall? Yeah, he's probably better than Randall, actually. Even though Randall has the accolades, I would say that Paulo Banchero might be a better player than Julius Randle. Better than anybody else, but he's not a better player than Jalen Brunson. He's just not. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think everything you say is true and is correct. I don't know if I agree that Banchero is better than Julius yet. I do think, but I think he can be. His talent level is really, really high. He's an excellent offensive player. Defensively, I think he has some work to do, but he's still he's a very smart player. I did not expect him to be this good this fast. So the fact that he's been this good this fast has been surprising. But Ty, Kenny Smith, when I think I sent it, I don't know if you saw the quote because I sent it in the chat this morning, and I think that's when you probably. So what did you when you read it? You watched it?
Some of the video of the footage. I don't think that he was off kiltered with some of the takes he had. He talking about the Knicks possibly being like having players that are like the second best players,
right,
when they step on the floor. Which I think that there's not too much argument or pushback you'll get from me on that. You know, I think Brunson's a stud. You know, I think he's top 15 player right in the league. He might be number 15, but I think he's a top 15 player. Julius has proven each year to be, you know, every other year now. But hopefully this is the third year we want to say every other year. But his numbers have been outstanding. The year in the bubble, he was an MVP candidate in many people's eyes. How he played, he was one of very few players putting up the numbers he puts up, and even now, the numbers he's putting up is outstanding. He got Player of the Week. You have the year prior. I mean, he's always put up great numbers in this league, and he's had success. He's won Most Improved Player. You know, I don't think you poo-poo at that and go, oh, all of a sudden some other unproven kid. And that's what Banchero is. He's still an unproven kid, no matter how talented he is. I don't think you don't put that jab in insulting a guy like Brunson. Brunson went to the Western Conference Finals with Luka. So let's not pretend it was all Luka.
Yeah.
Brunson was a bad damn dude in those playoffs. So he's proven he's taken the Knicks to the second round of the playoffs. Something they haven't done to say, where Banchero been? He hasn't been in the playoffs. He's just finally now getting his feet wet. This comes back to what Joe really said and brought it home. This is just grinding an axe of because you're pissed off. I heard him also say one year, Mr. Robinson, he's a nice little shot block, I guess. This was his compliment to saying about his statement about Mitch. He said, he's all right. A little stop. He's a little shot blocker. Like, Mitch Robinson's not a little shot blocker. He's one of the best offensive rebounding bigs, period. So he's not just blocking shots, and he doesn't block that many damn shots. So check the stats. He don't really block a lot of shots. He's always a great rebounder. So it's like to just dismiss a guy like that instead of saying, hey, that's my hometown team. I grew up rooting for the Knicks. I wish I could have ran the Knicks. There's always been a dream job of mine. Didn't work out. But don't make it a point that every time the Knicks are brought up, you get on there and you're dismissive, because he's done that a ton.
Yes.
It's not just with this one. He finds little jabs, mispronunciating guys' names, calling them something. Very dismissive. You bring up like a RJ Barrett, he's going to say something snarky because you're mad. Tell us why you're mad, son. That's what they say. Well, he's just a mad rapper. He's just mad that he's not running the Knicks. For whatever reason, he believes he should be running the Knicks. He has no GM experience. You throw big parties for athletes. That's really what you do. You haven't coached nothing. I mean, what, you supposed to go ahead of a guy like Sam Cassell, one of your friends? I mean, come on, you're not that dude. You've been on TNT, running around with your knees knobby, being an ass clown on TV. That's really what you've been. So why would we all of a sudden believe you should be running the damn Knicks?
This is not me.
So, dude, come on. It's nothing more insulting. Just say you don't like them because they didn't hire you. Then we can move on. But don't go in and belittle a player. Jalen Brunson's a dog. There's nobody. If you don't believe he's a dog, go play against him in a game. That dude's a
think about it this way too, right? You brought up Brunson being a dog. He leads the NBA in taking charges, and he is the best player on their team. So he is sacrificing his body, even though he knows in his head how important he is to the team. He sacrifices his body all the time. You're right. He's a dog. There's no other way, no other thing that exemplifies that, and there's no other way you can look at it. He's just, I don't know. Again, I like Banchero. I remember before the draft, I said I think he's going to be very good. Wasn't sure he'd go number one.
Would either of you trade him for Julius?
I would. Well, yes, I would for a couple of reasons. One, he's like 6 years younger, I think, so that's number one. You definitely do that. But two, he's more stable mentally, I guess.
More stable of a player, less peaks and valleys.
Yeah,
and I think that I like his aggressiveness. He's a dog too about playing like he's fearless as a player. His game is not matured enough, in my opinion. I mean, because he's a second-year player or whatever. I understand that. As Julius is,
a pretty mature game.
I think he would play better with Brunson than Julius. I think the fit is better because he does play more of that low post game. I think he would. We've seen of him playing with Brunson in the Olympics or whatever that is, World Cup.
Just a quick break in the action talking about him. He has 40 points tonight. So.
Yeah, he's a dog. I don't look at Banchero like he's a punk. I just think that to just gloss over what Brunson is to the Knicks, I always account for you're playing in this market. Everybody can't play in this market. It's just flat out facts. You've heard people come in and say they like the visit, don't want to stay. That's really what it comes down to. And to see what
all
Jalen,
of them say that.
They love the visit but don't want to stay. A guy like Brunson is getting it out of the mud, a local kid, basically. One of the best stories, Eric knows I've said this to him in private. I said, if Brunson ever won an MVP, his story and Jokic's story is two of the most amazing stories ever in the NBA.
Yep.
2 second-rounders be studs for their team. Because when you look at Jokic, I mean, he's got the ring, he's got the accolades. Brunson's in New York, a second rounder, and you think that you're going to just say, "Oh, Paolo's just so much better than him." What proof? What proof do you have? Unless Paolo balls out in the playoffs, if he's a first round exit, then he's not as good as Brunson because you're the definitive best player on your team. If you can't get out the first round, then don't talk about. And he's not proven to be that player yet. How do you just go around and just throw that kind of muck on? Because granted, he's having a 40-point game tonight, which is excellent, but everybody gets one of those nowadays.
That's true. The league is much more offensive friendly. That's true.
You can get 40. I'm not even like, when I see those scores, I'm like, oh, whatever. Brunson got 42 and then probably lost the game for us. How many times?
Yeah.
They get 40 coming out of their sleep nowadays. It's like that's why Michael Jordan would have probably averaged 70 because these dudes are getting 40 and they're not even as good. So come on. I mean, I just think that Kenny wants to put a knife in the Knicks. He just joined.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say he also brought up Halliburton, and I agree with him there. I actually do agree with him there. I think Halliburton is better than anyone the Knicks have.
Yeah, he's balling right now. I don't think you can.
And it's funny because on Twitter this is a huge discussion between the Knicks fans and the Pacers fans about who's better between Brunson and Halliburton. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, from my perspective, I would choose Halliburton because he's more of a traditional point guard. He gets guys involved. He's a better passer.
Yeah, but you still could have played both of them in the same backcourt.
Oh, sure.
If the Knicks said,
sure. Right, and like I said, and like I said before, the Knicks run their offense through Randall, right? That's who they run it through. Brunson, yes, does have his opportunities, does bring up the ball, but his first pass is usually always to Julius, and then they decide what they're going to do from there. He's not the one initiating. He's not the one surveying the floor. He's not the one, he's not doing any of that. So
crazy with this team, he actually drafted Halliburton and signed Brunson.
Oh,
they probably wouldn't have got Brunson.
That's what's my dream.
What's that?
This front office wouldn't do it. That would make a lot of sense. I'm just saying, Halliburton made the most sense because you needed a point guard. You had no plans on really exiting Julius once you hired Thibodeau. He was never going to take a young Obi and try to groom him because I'm more sure there's things he saw about Obi in college he just didn't like. So you knew that was not on it. They've never been on the same page enough, this front office. Mm-hmm. But, getting back to Halliburton and the discussion, and Eric knows my kickback on comparing him and Brunson, I said, how do you compare him? Brunson's not a point guard. Brunson is basically he's really I told Eric, you want to compare him? He's Carmelo Anthony, and he's about, 6 feet at the most?
Yeah.
He's just a killer ISO player. Melo had the same. When you watch Brunson's, the game may not mirror because you're looking at Melo being a 6'7", 6'8" big dude. But watch the game. The game, they play the same type of game. They're going to ISO heavy. They're going to maybe give you 4 or 5 assists. He can't rebound like Melo. But the point is that they attack the game from an isolation standpoint. They're not going to make your team better. They will win you a lot of games by how specially talented they are, but you're not going to get Melo to make, he's going to pass the ball. He's going to be LeBron all of a sudden. No. That's the same thing with Brunson. He's not. Whereas a guy like Halliburton is going to get your whole team better because he has that kind of game.
Back to the kind of original point. Let's say, for example, the front office did everything that it did before, and it could have easily done that, but they chose Halliburton. So your starting backcourt is Halliburton and Brunson at this point. Is that team a championship contender?
No, I don't think so.
Still have Randall, still have Barrett, Mitch.
Everything's the same.
You have all the players?
Yeah.
Everything's the same. You just drafted Halliburton instead of Toppin.
I think it might be, actually.
So do
I think it might be.
Maybe, yeah. If you keep in all the players, I didn't know if you were.
Yeah.
No, as much as we kind of go off on Thibodeau and Randall, isn't that the real mistake? Isn't that the real unforgivable sin that's happened with this regime?
What, that they drafted Obi and not Halliburton?
Yeah.
Well, yeah and no.
Me?
And the yeah and no part of that, if you were planning on moving Randall and keeping Obi, we don't know what that would have been like because we have no clue.
We're seeing Obi without Randall right now, and it's not lighting the world on fire, man. Honestly, do you think that it would? Do you think that he would have been a better player than Randall to the point that there would have been more value added than just sticking Halliburton in there?
I'm going to put it this way. I would have probably taken, not because I'm a big Obi fan, because I wasn't a big fan of his coming into the draft. So I'm not like I'm like this Obi, fan or whatever, running around with his flag or whatever. My thing, though, is that the fact that would we not have played a different style? Because Obi would have been more fast break oriented. You had Quickly here. You don't know what that could have looked like if you were playing with a different coach, who allowed those young dogs just to run. Because that's what you're seeing actually what Carlisle is doing in Indiana. He's letting them run. He's playing a fast-paced game. So Obi on a leak out and say Quickly was the speedball guy, or RJ's another guy, you may put him at the wing. Who knows? It might not be that he would be better than Randall, but he might have been a better fit for what this team was trying to do. And maybe he maximized. Look at Jeremy Lin. He's always the greatest example in the sense of this. He sucked everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He sucked everywhere. He came in.
Tony's
he didn't suck. So you don't know. Like I would say, everybody can't play here. There's some guys who are the underdog, who kind of get the assignment. I'm going to come in. Obi was, for lack of term, balls to the wall when he played. He ran the floor. He leaked out. He had a certain energy that we're missing now, actually. Who knows? I mean, I've said the same thing about Halliburton. But would he be doing the same thing he's doing in Indiana? You never know. The pressure is different here.
I think Halliburton isn't dependent on the pace. I think Halliburton could be successful within this offense. I look at Obi right now in the fast-paced offense, and dude's averaging 13 points and 4 rebounds. He's not – I mean, that's not something that you build around that kind of player, or you dictate the pace of your offense around or anything like that. Like –
Would you dictate it around Julius?
I think
you would have had a more successful offense if you did.
I think
it's around Julius and nobody else.
I would rather have my offense go through Julius than Obi.
I think where
if you had another player that it went through, other than, because my belief is if Obi's here, Obi's a product of a system. He's not the guy you're feeding the ball through. Right. I'm just saying it probably would have been some point guard type. Maybe it was Brunson. Would you put Brunson there? I mean, I've just seen the teams excel better when you got a moving guy like Obi as opposed to – I mean, Julius is a slow-down player. Once you put him in, you're like – I don't know if you guys get the cramp. But when he gets subbed into the game, I'm looking like, damn, how's this going to work?
I think from an aesthetic standpoint and from the point of the way Brunson plays basketball, I do think, and I'm not saying they would be, that he'd put up the same numbers, but I do think Obi would be a good fit playing with Brunson as the starting power forward. For the simple fact that I watched Obi play in college, and where he operated best is top of the key. And then on dives, because obviously he's a tremendous athlete, so then they would do that. But he was a good pick and pop player. And I feel like with Brunson, a guy who you have to respect who's going to hit that shot, that mid-range shot, I feel like they would have gotten a lot of points had they decided, okay, we're going to run pick and roll with this guy and see what he can do. I do think as in a more featured role, I don't think Obi would be a 21, 11, and 5 player, but I think he could be a 20 and 8 player in that kind of a role.
He's in a perfect situation right now and not shining.
But because he's not a featured player for them.
Yeah, there's everybody else and him.
They're not featuring him.
No.
So
is he worthy of being featured anywhere?
Well, that's what I was talking about. If the Knicks drafted him and used him that way, I think he would be. But he hasn't been used that way in the NBA. He was told, like Grimes, sit your ass in the corner. You're gonna shoot some threes for us. And that's what he's been doing since he's come into the league. So in a lot of ways, I feel like he's being reprogrammed. I feel like Carlisle has to work to reprogram him to get him to play a different style of basketball. And again, I don't watch them all the time. I've seen a couple of Pacer games, and the stuff he brings is what we lack now. And I say it all the time. The NBA is a young man's league. It's an athletic league. You need players like him. I'm not saying you need him, but you need players like him, and we don't have any. We don't have one player who on a break you're scared of. You don't have one player who athletically can do things with the ball. We don't have anybody like that.
Not one.
So that's the thing. That's the next step in the evolution of this team. If this season goes as planned, which I think it probably will, second round, maybe they get to the next round. I have no idea. But I think, like you said, Joe, like you keep saying, Joe, I don't think Thibodeau's going to play out his contract. I think something will happen there. And then whoever comes in next, that's what they need to do. They need to say, okay, we have all these brick and mortar players, right? These lunch pail guys who are going to work hard. We need guys who can run up and down the court, get in an open court style game, change the game for us at certain points if we need something like that. One of them has to be a dynamic shooter. Yes, they need that for sure. But they need somebody who athletically is going to put pressure on the defense. We don't have anybody like that.
So the question is right now, the team composition is slated for Tibbs' style of play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to change style, you're going to need the cornerstone to that kind of construct. You're going to need that athletic player to build around it. We don't have that, like you say. So getting those players isn't exactly easy. I mean, you think about the athletic players that are available, Zach LaVine, and you know what I think of him. How do you find the player to make that transition with? Because if you try to take this roster and do that with this roster.
Can I answer?
I have an answer too, but go ahead, Ty. Go ahead.
The answers were screwed. The reason why we're screwed, I'm gonna give my answer.
Blow the roster up and try to build up.
You want to know why we're screwed? Why we're screwed is because we're not drafting players. What we're doing is drafting. We're taking in assets with this whole look at the name. Hold on, can I do it like Eric? See right there?
Yeah.
No plan B. We are screwed because you had Jalen Duren, who was an athlete that you could have taken instead of you unloading Kemba and all these other people. Start drafting some stud talents instead of doing these on the margin ones towards the end. No matter what you look at Quentin Grimes, no matter when you look at Emmanuel Quickly, they were picked late in the draft.
Yeah,
they might have success, but they're not going to push you to the echelon that you need.
There's a reason they were taken that late.
So we've got a coach who believes in playing like it's like a Prince song, like it's 1999, maybe before that. The year I graduated is how we're playing. High school. I graduated in 1991. We're playing a 1991 version of modern day NBA basketball, a slowed down pace. There's not a team. When you look at all the teams, look at Golden State, how fast their gameplay is. You look at even Giannis, even though he's working for Travelocity and traveling all he wants, it's still a fast-paced game. You look at Boston; those dudes are moving. They're fast. Every team that you name outside of the Lakers are quick-hitting players. The team is athletic and moving. You look at the Knicks. The Knicks have heart mechanical. Whatchamacallit? Dante, undersized, very athletic, but he just can't finish above the rim. I don't know what the hell's going on with it. He needs sticky glue. When you look at a guy like Brunson, not as athletic. He's not athletic. Tough, but not athletic. Who? Mitchell Robinson was the most athletic he had for the longest, and even now he's looking like Patrick Ewing with 2 bags of ice on his knees because it's like, this dude looks old. Everybody on the Knicks has no athleticism to the point where they pop off the page when you see them. There's not what Jericho Sims is our greatest, and we don't even see him play. So when you talk about what are we going to do, the next move, there is no next move. You've got to blow it up and redraft. All these picks mean nothing if you can't get athletes in here that can run or high picks. the Knicks are treading water, and until you get like that supreme athlete, like a guy like the dude that's in Duke right now, which
You both know that's never going to happen, though. That they're going to just
Okay. Let me take a shot at this. Okay.
Right.
So you say we're screwed, and I kind of agree in the fact that we probably are. But if you're gonna do it, you don't need the athletes to be your best player.
No.
You just need them to fill out the team.
Mm-hmm.
So, for case in point, someone like I'm trying to think of a guy who was a supreme athlete but not a great like fundamental player who made an impact. I can't think of anyone in the NBA history right now, but somebody like that.
Devin Booker's not a great athlete, but a top-tier impact player.
Well, Devin Booker is one of the best players in the game. So,
yeah, but not a high-level athlete.
Supreme shooter, like he has elite skills in his game. So, I'm just saying you need guys who's ever bringing the ball up the court, and you have guys filling lanes, that the defense isn't going to be like, well, he's not going to dunk on me, so I don't need to do shit. Like I could just, you need guys who are going to press the defense into having to make a decision on a break, and that's those things like that are going to change how they play, because you're going to be able then to say, okay, we can play different styles. If we have Brunson still, he can still play in the half court, right? You can still do RJ can still get drive downhill, get to the basket, get to the free throw line. But now we have a guy like Obi Toppin, who we're coming down on the break. He's going to finish for us. He's going to. I hate saying it because people think, oh, it's not that big a deal. It does make a difference when a guy athletically makes a play in the NBA on another guy. Like it does impact the game, and it does make them think twice. So, like you said, Joe, we are structured to be a Tibbs team, and Ty said this all. Like he just said, they're built to play in 1990 style of basketball. He's right. You're both right. This is the team we have, and it works for this coach. But what I would like to see, and I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if they do move on from Thibodeau, I'd like Jason Kidd to come here somehow, and let's play basketball. Let's do that. That's my
in a heartbeat.
Huh?
I would sign on for that in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need somebody. The game has always been where you drive the ball throw. Why do you think Matt? As slow as people think Larry Bird is, let's go back to the 80s a little bit. Lakers were a fast break team. That's what it was. Showtime. Even the Celtics were a fast breaking team.
Yeah.
Where you put pressure on the defense to have to get back in transition, or you're getting dunked on or scored on, easy buckets. It's like Mike D'Antoni we saw with Phoenix, running down your throat with Nash. You see it even with Curry. Fast-paced ball, running down your throat. LeBron in his earlier years was a fast break running in your throat. When you start seeing that, we look at our team, there's not one guy that you say, oh, damn, he's coming on the break. You don't have a Sean Kim moment. You don't. But you are.
Your best guy on the break is Josh Hart. At this point.
Your
best guy on the break is Josh Hart right now.
Josh Hart is, yes.
And and you see guys start backpedaling like, oh, damn, he's bringing it. Now you're on your heels. But any other time, slow, bringing it up. Jalen's going to be slow and methodical. That gives a defense the time to set up. When you watch Indiana, I don't know if you guys are watching any of their games. I watched the play-in game. Man, those dudes are like, bang, bang, bang. Let me hit you again and bang. And teams like the Celtics that are not old, they had no answer. Because you had Halliburton dancing on the perimeter, or they were on a fast break, or these dudes they're just hitting you with punch after punch. It's like if the Knicks were to play that against a team like that, there's not enough defense in the league. These dudes are too offensively talented to say a slow down defense is going to stop this. It's not going to happen.
But think of who they have, right? Like we just talked about Obi, right? Obi's a finisher. Matherin's a finisher. These guys
like Matherin.
Yeah, Miles Turner is a good athlete, can finish. You have guys on that team that can finish, make athletic plays, and that's why they're on the come up. The Pacers are getting better and better. Like I said, yeah, well coached team.
They have the entire 2020 draft or whatever the draft is. I don't know if you know about this thing. They
Yeah,
have like all of the guys that are like in the top 15 in the draft. I think they have like 5 of them on the team. So it's like, I mean, come on. They play a style of basketball that I don't know for what the life of it New Yorkers want. They always think that we want some 1990 throwback, like, oh, the Knicks got to have a defensive team that looks like when Ewing. Well, they didn't win shit. I mean, excuse my language, but they didn't. It's like the teams that have won have always had this fast-moving pace offense, or a dynamic scorer. You got to move the ball. You can't, plunge your way into thinking that that's going to win nowadays, especially not today's league.
It's also a great example of what we don't have, and that's a coach in Rick Carlisle who is changing his system to fit the players that he has. He had one of the fastest paces all of last year, and one of the fastest paces now. I've watched a lot of Rick Carlisle over the years, and that has not historically been a Rick Carlisle signature. Nope. But this is a guy who says, what do I have?
Mm-hmm.
How can I maximize this? And how can I turn this into wins?
Spoelstra does it. Spoelstra does that. Yeah.
Think about
all
it.
I appreciate Tibbs in a lot of ways. He does not have that.
I don't appreciate him at all.
No. Well,
think about a pitcher with one pitch.
Yeah, it's weird to me. It's weird to me that both he and Van Gundy were students of Riley, and Riley changed his style when he got to the Knicks, right? And neither one of them did that in their careers.
They never thought to pivot one iota. And to look at a guy like Eric Spoelstra, I mean, he's a clone of Riley in a lot of ways. Man, that dude can bring in G League guys and have them playing like all-stars and give them the kind of confidence and said, oh, now we can't shoot threes. We're going to barrage threes because these guys, that's what they're here for. I mean, Popovich, for all those years, he revamped his team. He went from – and he reluctantly didn't want to. He's been vocal about, I don't like how the game is played, but I had to adapt and start throwing up three-point shots. This stuff has not won. Even in Riley's heyday with the Knicks. And Riley's arguably, to me, the best coach ever.
I agree. He's the best coach ever.
It didn't work in New York. Like, when you look at it, at the root of it, they're trying to replicate and bring back to this nostalgia of the Knicks, which is great. But come on, it didn't work. It didn't win a title. It just kept you in the hunt like we are now. Kept you competitive. You hope that you get a break. Michael Jordan goes on vacation, and we get into the finals. I mean, literally, you're waiting for that now. Like that, we might get some enormous break that happens like we did last year. We're like, oh, maybe this is our year because so-and-so got knocked out. And it's like, it's not sustainable. Like we're
missing
a ball and win a title with just basically the Pistons still outscore teams. They act like the Pistons weren't offensively talented. They're like, oh, the bad boys just beat up people. Yeah. You had James Edwards. You had scorers. You had bucket getters.
They had Isaiah Thomas is arguably the best offensive point guard in the history of the NBA. You can make the argument. He wasn't when they decided to go with the defensive way, he changed his game.
Yeah.
But he is arguably the greatest offensive point guard in the history of the game. Yeah. So I mean, you're right. They could score when they had to score, and that's all, and that's what you need. Like you said, we're trying to bring back the 90s Knicks, but we're missing the one big thing they had. We don't have Patrick Ewing. Right? Like we're missing that.
You're missing the sweat puddle. You don't have that in the middle. This not one, and that's the thing. And Patrick, with his size and his ability, to play defense, that if you had that kind of, we don't have one of the better players that's in that top 10. Like I said, Brunson's probably 15. Julius might be 14. And it's not no knock against him. It's just you don't have that elite guy, that guy that's maybe top 7, top 5. And when you don't have that, you got problems. And this coach is playing like he has a top 7 dude and refusing to go away from this archaic style of basketball that maybe he's not capable. maybe I'm starting to believe that he just doesn't get it. He's just one of those guys, get off my lawn. I'm going to stick to this MO, and I know it works. Well, it's only worked to get you to the second rounds. I think he got the one Eastern Conference Finals. Did he get it with the Bulls that year? With Rose?
He did. Yep.
And look who you had on the team, Derrick Rose. I rest my case. You had one of the most unique players we've ever seen. Barring the injury, who knows what he would have been? But you don't have. You don't got. He had that dude. That's why he got there. But now,
and then those Boston teams he coached with Doc. Yeah, I obviously had the big three, right? You had Allen, you had Paul Pierce, you had Kevin Garnett. Like you had
Rondo
great players.
Really
right? You had great players there. So I don't know. This is a conversation that we could have all night and continue, but we don't have that time because we have real jobs and we have things we have to do tomorrow.
Yeah. So. Let's go be miserable in our beds.
So we're gonna shut this one down. So Joe, real quick, tell people where they can find you, and I'm gonna start tweeting at you just to be fun. Go ahead.
First, I want to drop some wisdom.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yes.
Sure. All of you out there watching the show, first of all, we love you. We appreciate you. Second of all, be grateful for your heat. Because sometimes it ain't going to show up, and that's a bad thing. So be grateful tonight as you go to sleep. Be grateful for your heat. Okay. You can reach me at Upstate Joe, AKU, for all Knicked Up. That is on X. You could also reach me on the fan page anytime if you want to yell at me for some take I've had or some kind of tomfoolery that just got you triggered. Let me know all about it. I love to hear it. But we appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Ty.
Hit me up at Genius Scribble on Ed, go and give it to you. And also on our fan page, come and engage with us. Maybe you got a plan A. Maybe you got a plan B that the Knicks. Somebody help me out, because you know what? A quick short story. My nephew was over last night with his girlfriend, and they were in the room doing some work on a computer, and his girlfriend was like, "What's going on?" He says to her, he goes, "My uncle's just watching the Knicks. Never mind the cursing." So I just thought it was so it's like, yeah, I said, this is why my blood pressure's up. So needless to say, if anybody can take me off the damn ledge and make me think better about what this team's going to be, please do it. I want a plan B or C or D or whatever you got. Holla at your boy. Hit us up on the page.
Well, Ty, one bit of good news we got today, or possibly got today, because we're both Yankee fans, is it looks like we might be getting Juan Soto and Yamamoto from Japan. So if that happens, that's some good news, right? So that's the one team we could throughout our lives that has won something. Yes. So we can be very, very happy about that.
God, my father for introducing me to the Yankees, because let me tell you, I'd be a miserable. It's funny you bring that up, because I was in a store recently and this guy saw I had a Knick hat on, and I was talking about you actually, Eric, in the sense that they said, "Oh," he says, "You wear a Knick?" He says, "I was wondering how you feel," because he's like, "It's been miserable," and I'm a Jets fan. He says so, and I said, "I got a buddy." I said, "I don't know how he does both the Knicks and the Jets." So I was laughing. I was like, "Yeah, he's pretty miserable too." I said, "Thank God I don't do football. I'm not a football fan, because I probably would have been a Jets fan, probably." Yankees have always, absolutely.
Yep, my two favorite sports is football and basketball. Those are the two teams I root for that have never won squat in my life. So, right? That's crazy. You guys want to hit me up? You see my information here? Yes, there we go. At Finally 33 is my personal account. At All Nicked Up is the show account, and at straight__G is the account for my other podcast, Straight Outta Gotham, fan of pop culture podcast that I co-host with my buddy Pete Vera. I just posted a new episode actually today, so if you guys are into that stuff, go check it out. It's anywhere you can get a podcast. Just search for Straight Outta Gotham, and you will find it there. As the guys mentioned, the Facebook page, the fan page that we have of All Nicked Up, Ty does a great job posting game recaps there. We should probably start doing some more rumor stuff. So maybe I'll start throwing up some rumors I hear. Get that. Yeah, get that on the page. We definitely, and for everything we talk about on the show, everything's open for discussion. The show is posted there, so you guys could easily just comment underneath there, and we can have conversation whether you watch it live with us now or later. We'll always enjoy interacting with our fans, and of course, as always, we thank you for all the support you give us on a weekly basis. So for Ty and Joe, I'm Eric. You're listening to All Nicked Up, and we will see you next week.